Some days I feel like the dog Doug from Up. While I'm painting these little Enzellans for a diorama that I need to finish by the 22nd of December, I remembered I had a life-size Babu Frik that I hadn't printed yet. So I found the files, printed them out, and decided I'm gonna make my own whiskers. So I'm filling in the slots for the eyebrows and the whiskers here and taking my black light and curing it. My little black light that you see here is not strong enough to cure all the way through, so after I cure it just enough that it's not going to leak, I take it over to, I have a much stronger black light that I let it sit under for about 10 minutes. Then when that was done, I started painting. I start with a base coat because I'm not using any primer. The files came from Magnavus over on Printables. You should check out his stuff, and if you do download anything, buy him a coffee. I think that they're well worth it. The files are really good quality, as you can see here from this Babu Frik. When finished, he's going to be about 22 centimeters tall, not counting the base. I printed most of these pieces hollow, 2mm wall. You'll see holes that I put in the part when I printed it, because if you don't do that, it will actually leave resin inside that doesn't cure. So I print it with the holes so that I can drain the extra resin that's in there out, and then stick a little LED, UV LED down in there and let it cure. I'm not using any primer, so I'm basically doing a really light coat with these craft paints first and using that as my prime coat. If you do this method, you need to make sure that the first coat is completely dry before moving on to the next coat, because it will pull up if you're doing wet on wet, and that's not fun. His little waist belt, I'm painting in 3 or 4 different colors of brown, and then I did a little black wash in the seams, and then I'm painting back over that to kind of give it some texture and some depth to the different details. There is some really good detail on this belt. He even has the threads. Most of my paints are a matte color, so I need to go get a gloss wash to paint over the eyes. Right now I'm just painting them with black. I don't have the best hand-eye coordination and hand dexterity, so this is kind of, I don't know, you want to say therapeutic, but not, because it's frustrating for me when I'm trying to do such small details. I think that's why I moved away from the little ones and decided to do this one right away, was because I was getting frustrated with trying to get the little details and I needed an escape. If you want to get into 3D printing and are trying to decide between a resin and an FDM, I have both, and it's one of the questions I get asked a lot is, which should you get? It comes down to, what do you want to print more of? I don't think he would have printed out as well and would have required a lot of cleanup had I done him on my FDM printer. But I have a life-size 3PO that I printed in multiple pieces and glued together. I don't think there's any way I would have been able to do that with my resin printer. So you have to know, what are you going to print most, and that's going to dictate which direction you want to go with. And then after a while, you're probably going to end up with both anyway, like I did. So here you can see the drain holes, and then on his torso, I actually took some nippers and I actually cut a hole much even bigger. partially to help with the fit. It was just, I don't know what happened, but there was just a little bit of a gap, and I had to trim away some of the little mating connector to make it fit better. In a scene, you'll never see it. The helmet here has a lot of detail, so I decided to just give it like this charcoal gray, dark gray color first. And I'm painting the visor at the same time because I mix my colors up by eye. I try to get as much done that I want to know has the same color at the same time, because I'm a hack, I'm not a painter. There are much better YouTubers out there for proper techniques. I'm all about what's the finished product going to look like and how do I get there. For the visor, I want to really make it pop, so I'm going to use this orange and I'm going to just try to cover over that design on the top. It takes a couple layers of the orange, but it actually starts to look really good. I'm not trying to do a lot of detail, just enough so that when you see it from a distance you can tell. I eventually want to flood the little weld window with red resin, but for now I'm just going to paint in there with a red. The red over the dark actually looks pretty good to me. I like the way it has that worn look. And then here I'm just adding a little bit of detail onto what would be the pivot so that the visor can pivot up and down. It doesn't really do that on the model. It slides into place, but just wanted to have a little bit of worn area because that's where he would grab the visor to tip it. For his two tools, I just kind of kept going back and forth between the different colors that I had to kind of come up with something that was good. I have a metallic brown that looks like a dark bronze, and that's what's in the handle of his right hand. And then the tool in his left hand, I just took the different grays and washed back and forth until I got to something that looked like it's been worn, well used, and I didn't want both tools to just be a solid color. This little piece goes onto his belt. I'm not using any reference pictures, so it's kind of my version of Babu Frik. If you don't think he looks correct, that's why. He's starting to come together nicely, but when I stand him up to glue his head to his torso, I realized that he's very top heavy. I should have printed the helmet hollow. I did not. If you're going to download and print, I would hollow out pretty much all of the bigger pieces, minus the visor because of how thin it is. A big thank you has to go to my dog who donated to this project. When I decided to do whiskers, she was getting groomed, so I kept a little bit of the hair from doing that. Here you can see I am gluing the eyebrows on just using super glue. his left side, the right to you, it looks much better to me than the left. I will probably, as with all my projects, come back later and try to come up with a way to make it look even better. The real Babu Frik, I think his whiskers were much thinner like what I have here. That's what gave me the idea to not use the whiskers from the model. The whiskers from the model are awesome. They fit into the joint sections like they're supposed to. But, you know, you got to be different sometimes. Anyway, here is the finished product coming up. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think he came out pretty good. I'm very happy. I think my droids will be happy as well. Thanks for watching.